We're going to be talking about 13 board games that got delivered to me over the span of the last about 2 years. All of them supported on Kickstarter. Now this video is a first impression, so I'm just going to be going over each game really quick. And to be first impressions and to exist in this video, basically I had to have learned each game and to have played a single real session. Not a learning type of session, but a real session. So take this as a sort of buyer's guide. If you see the board game that you're interested in getting, especially if you see a couple of the ones that you're interested in getting, then this can possibly help you decide which one to get. And the order I'll be presenting each board game here will be alphabetical. So without further ado, let's start with the first one, which is Aeon's Trespass Odyssey. Aeon Trespass Odyssey, that's singular. By far the longest box out of all of these 13 games. Highly inspired by Kingdom Death Monster, as you can see by the box being the opposite type of thing except for the shape and size, whereas this is actually larger than the Kingdom Death original box. This is one of the, if not the most heaviest of the games that I had to learn, and the game is actually a learning process almost the whole game through, from what I understand, as the different scenarios or campaigns have more rules that apply. I like that concept, but being as heavy as it is, there could be a tad bit of anxiety around the thought of getting this finally to the table. And again, this is gonna be like Kingdom Death in that it's gonna take up a lot of table space. I do have the unboxing video of this game that I did where I cover everything monster, as I do with, or I did with most of these games. So my first impressions are, I'm looking forward to playing it, but I'm not sure quite when I'll do it, because once I pull it out, I'll be going through it pretty heavy. I'm not sure when it'll be that I jump into the next big sort of campaign game. Although with me, it could be at any time. I could do it tomorrow. It could be in another 6 months. I'm probably most excited to see how the battles kind of pan out and how exciting they get, and hopefully not too repetitive, as well as the rest of the gameplay itself. And also how good the lore is and how good that flows, because that's something that Kingdom Death didn't have much of. It sort of hints at it, but then it's not really quite in depth there. This game certainly has more of that lore aspect along with the gameplay. So Aeon Trespass Odyssey was one of my most anticipated games to unbox and see what's in there. And now, as far as being the most anticipated to play or most excited to play, I'm not sure about that. I'm looking forward to it, but there may be some other ones here that I'm more sort of excited and looking forward to actually playing. Now at number 2, again, this is in alphabetical order, is Arena the Contest. And this includes Teneris Adventures as well, as I did receive that expansion with this, but this is going to take a good amount of time to play through first. Overall, this is probably comparable most like D&D, although I think I'll make a video about that more in depth about how much this compares to D&D and Gloomhaven and that whole world and which game more. So during my first actual playthrough, my impressions were that the actual battle and the play flow wasn't too excited, but what did kind of get me going was that there's a little thing where you need to figure out a puzzle, and that's in the booklet. That kind of excites me. Little additions of that, we're kind of doing something outside of the board, is always a pleasant kind of relaxing gameplay experience for me to kind of enjoy the world and experience it from a different angle rather than just tossing dice or whatever it is and battling monsters on and on and on. I mean, you're going to be doing that for the most part, so it's always nice to take a break. Of course, there are those gamers out there that really don't care for all that extra fluff and really just want to battle and get into the mechanics of battling and strategy gameplay. I'm pretty excited to playing Arena, but maybe most so Teneris Adventure, that expansion, as there are beautiful and tons of minis there. And again, the overall sessions seem pretty exciting, although the game board and all that, for the core box especially, seems like it might get a bit boring quick. So we'll see how that goes. Also, very important to mention is that these will all be my first impressions solo play. For the most part, when I talk about board games on this channel, it's going to be about solo play. Now at letter C and number 3, we have Cloud Spire, I believe Chip Theory Games, right? Because the creators of these games don't really use miniatures much and things like that. They depend on, or a large important component of the game are the chips that have nice artwork on them. And the quality, this is the only game of theirs that I've experienced so far, but the quality, it's pretty premium. I'm saying it straight up. I'm pretty excited about this game. The way it plays, it's colorful. It's not that hard to learn. Okay, now if you've played Warhammer or D&D or something like that, this is definitely not hard to learn. I think the people that are rating this as a heavier game to learn aren't used to those other tabletop games. They're maybe just used to other board games, because sure, your units are going to have different abilities and you're going to want to learn your army more. But if you're playing something like Warhammer, I mean, this is incomparable in difficulty. This is much more simple. The reason why this is not that heavy of a game is it has a great tutorial kind of playthrough booklet. I wish all games actually do that, where it actually tells you what to do and walks you step by step through a tutorial play. That's awesome. So everything from the chips and how you're storing health and upgrading things, this game has me excited. I don't know if it's my most excited to play game out of all these games, but it very well could be. I'm not sure. It's among the top 3 or whatever. This game is awesome, and I'm strongly looking forward to the day when I come back to it. The only negatives, I guess, or what I might be worried about is there not being enough of campaign missions. Every faction has a little bit of a campaign, and with these kind of games, that's where I worry is there going to be enough content for me to play solo? I wouldn't say that with many games, but with this one, like to replay a scenario, I think it would be fun, and just trying out the other factions. I don't know, this just, it would work and would keep it still exciting and intriguing. And so I look forward to playing this and to someday getting Too Many Bones. Heard many good things about that one. Now, next up is Endless Winter. It's the only game here I don't have the box for anymore. So that's a unique thing about it. And the other unique thing about it is it's the only game that I ever bought, learned it, played it, and then realized I do not enjoy it. Not that much in solo. I think Endless Winter got a lot of hype and support and got positive feedback surrounding it, maybe a little bit undeservedly. I think the campaign on Kickstarter was great. The artwork, everything's great, but first of all, I'm going to say that I feel it's going to be a much more fun experience with someone else rather than solo. Now, I could probably say that about any board game as long as you can play it more than with just yourself. But as far as Endless Winter, it's doing so many things, but nothing in a great way. I've seen those kind of reviews on it as well. But again, with somebody else, I think that'd be much more fun. But for myself, it just didn't do much for me. And that kind of game is also not my preferred solo type of game. I prefer campaign kind of games where like things can progress and move forward. And that's not really the type, but it didn't really give me any sort of dopamine hits during gameplay. And I think with the expansion, and I got a little expansion that came with the Kickstarter, that should already be mixed into the game. But it just wasn't for me, and I figured if I could trade it out, that would probably be the best thing for myself and for the game while it's still nice and new. And actually that's what happened, and I got Wingspan in return, and Wingspan has been a much more positive experience, even though that still isn't the type of game I want to play more solo. As a solo experience, it was better, and I do have a review of that game if you want to see my perspective on that on this channel. Next up at number 5 for the letter E is Ether Fields. So Ether Fields is like what I just learned recently, is very akin to Seventh Continent or Seventh Citadel, which I'll be talking about in this video as well, but I realized how similar this game is to that and how inspired it was probably by Seventh Continent, as that was the older game. Essentially, it's a dream exploration game, but with extravagant minis. Gorgeous minis, and I got extra minis for it and all that. So I'm pretty excited to play this. It's very colorful, very visually appealing game. I do enjoy it, but one thing that I'm worried about is the replayability after going through the whole game once, as you do get to switch your characters throughout game. So then what's the reason to go back and replay the full campaign? And the second thing that I'm a little bit worried about is the purpose. What I'll talk about a little bit more later in 7th Citadel is I feel more purpose there. I'm curious how much of the decisions you're making impact the world and yourself and your gameplay. But in the end, I'm not too worried about that because if it is kind of a story walkthrough kind of game, I don't know if I have any other game like that. So experiencing like that still would be kind of fun for me. Overall, I'm looking forward to Etherfields and especially painting those minis. Next up, still in the letter E's, at number 6 is Euthia. And I actually, when I was talking about Cloudspire, being pretty excited about that, I think it's got a run for its chips because this game is pretty awesome. Euthia, so I was expecting Euthia to be like Heroes of Might and Magic. And funny enough, by the time I'm talking about this, not only did I learn that there's a board game of Heroes of Might and Magic 3 coming out, and it's in this video as well. Now, this is not like that, but it is a different sort of game. I heard that it's very much like Mage Knight. That's a game I'm looking forward to getting someday. Have not played it, but I really enjoyed this game. Very much enjoyed it. It's got the buildup of the character, finding items, the battling and going back and getting revenge on a monster. That all really excited me. I can't wait actually to get back into this game and exploring it some more. But there is one thing that worries me about it. And the thing is there going to be enough content for solo play and to make this enjoyable? I know there's expansions, but I don't want to have to look into expansions to get that much more play. I want to make sure that there's a good level of satisfaction in the core box before I move on to expansions. There's not that many sessions. I don't even know if there is a campaign. If this had a bigger campaign in solo, this game is excellent. And not only with the campaign, I'm a little bit worried that there's not enough maybe of everything. Because whatever this game has done that I experienced, if I learned anything from that, I want this and more of everything in it. It's awesome. I love Euthia, and I'm really glad it worked out for these guys and for me as a gamer and a board game collector with a problem. Now next up for F, at number 7 we have Frosthaven. Another epic game, just like the first one on this list. This is Gloomhaven and more of it, which is pretty nuts. I have played Jaws of the Lion all the way through. I'll have to make a review of that eventually. Enjoyed it. It's the only one here that I haven't actually played one scenario of it because, well, I've played Jaws of the Lion, I've played Gloomhaven, so in the first single scenario there wouldn't be anything or not much anything new that I'd experienced, so I didn't waste time on that. Nonetheless, reading through the rulebook and seeing everything more that you have and just developing your character and developing your town and more like mini game type of things there, that's got me intrigued. I don't know when I'll be getting to it. I can't say I'm that enthusiastically excited and can't wait to get there because, I mean, I'm in Gloomhaven, and if you are in that boat, you know what I mean. But if you've beaten Gloomhaven or played through a good portion ready for something new, they're good games. It's a great game system. But am I that crazily ecstatic to see what these new town building mechanics are and all that? Not really. And it's probably going to be a while before I jump into this one. But the content, even for what you pay, is crazy with all 3 of these games. And now there's a new one, the little one, which I'm not going to really bother with unless you guys want to see my reaction to it or review to it. And here, after just mentioning this one while talking about Euthia, for the letter H, at number 8, we have Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the board game. My goodness. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to design my own Heroes of Might and Magic 3 board game. If this channel would have made it big enough, I would have at least contacted the license, the company, and seen if I would have been able to do that. They did a great job on the miniatures for the most part. The art itself is like Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the concept art, with a step up. The way it plays is fun. That's one thing I was worried about because Heroes of Might and Magic 3 was so awesome of a game. They've designed it their way. And I just recently found out there's another one coming out that is more wargame style, and that makes sense to me because one thing that bothers me is Heroes of Might and Magic 3, or all Heroes of Might and Magic strategy games, it's highly about those numbers of having all those monsters and then killing them down. You don't see health bars for a single monster, you just have tons of monsters. They didn't do that in this. It's a tricky thing to do because it's going to affect your whole mechanics. Here it's just mentioned whether there's a pack or a few of them, so they don't have that whole system in here where you're counting down the monsters, how many you kill. The rest of it, we're exploring the land and even battling. Even the combat system, I don't have the upgraded combat or the expansion combat system. That's what I want to get, that battle board, which looks more like it does in the video game. I just have the core box one, but actually that combat is fun. It's not that time consuming. It's not that much of a brain burner or like pulls you out. It takes the right amount of time, I feel, right now with the whole game, and I'm enjoying it for what it is. But if I really get into this game, I do want to get that whole bigger battle mat and learn that system and see how good that one is. So overall, the art style, the gameplay, they've stayed true to the original video game quite a bit, but obviously there are going to be some differences. The thing I'm probably most worried about is there going to be enough solo content for me? I got some expansions, right, that came with the Kickstarter supporting of the core box, but as it stands in the core box, there just isn't much for the solo player to enjoy. That's not fair to the person buying only the core box, and the expansion doesn't have that much more. The thing I also enjoy in this more than the video game I was usually playing with someone else. I didn't do it that much alone, solo play. But what I enjoy here is the solo play aspect of reading through the booklet as you're playing and it's telling you what's going on in the world. That is pretty cool. If there's more of that as you're playing, I actually enjoy that more in board game format than in video game format. Video game, I just want to build up the armies, go travel, explore things, but in board game, I like to be more immersed into the world because you don't get to have the other things like in video games, such as animations and music. So well written out story and lore and guiding gameplay does add a bit for me. So I want to say I'm pretty excited to play more of this game if there is enough content, because if I do get to play it a lot and then I really enjoy it and I just have to buy more expansions and even they don't have enough for the solo player, the solo dungeon player, then I can't say I'm that excited for it. But Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Gonna be painting up those minis, you check that out. Next up for the letter N under number 9 is Nemesis Lockdown. This is the only one I've played, and the game, it's enjoyable. I could see where it might be more enjoyable with others, possibly. The thing that I don't enjoy that much is there's almost a randomness to where you can lose at the end, although you can mitigate it, if that's the right word in this context, if you do enough research and collect enough stuff to make sure you have a better chance of not losing. But there's still a pretty strong random chance that everything you just did could be lost. Now, you might be all right with that because it works with the theme. I mean, you're trying to escape and it's a crazy situation that you're in, and it very well could just not work out in your favor. The whole experience of it is pretty fun. What I'm worried about is the solo campaign content. I like solo campaign with a game like that. I don't want to have one scenario and just have to replay it and replay it in solo. That's going to get very boring and repetitive for me. In the expansion, there is a booklet, and it's awesome. It's a graphic novel, a sort of comic book, right? That walks you through, I think, a sort of campaign. I was looking at it, that's the idea I got. It is a campaign. I'm hoping it uses the expansion as well. I'm not sure if it does, but if that's all a solo, cool-looking campaign, that's pretty awesome. None of these games have that. I'm really excited about that. That ups it for me. Without that, which was included in the expansion, even though I only backed the core because of Kickstarter, if that's not included, this alone, would this really keep me excited enough for a solo player? I'm not sure. On another note, I do wish the creatures, the aliens themselves, or the miniatures were a little bit more interesting. There's nothing really wrong with them. It's just the design, the idea of them isn't that exciting as far as monsters and miniatures of these other games. For instance, you'll see, if you're a solo player watching this video right now and you've played this or the other Nemesis, let me know your opinion on Nemesis for soloing particularly. And at number 10, starting with the letter T's, we have the Emerald Flame. So this is a narrative puzzle adventure. This is your basic escape room type of game. I've never played an escape room. I still want to try that out with somebody, but I do understand that whole puzzle situation. And this is that sort of puzzly type of game. You get envelopes, you open them up, and you read different clues. There's ultimately a lore to it all. But the nice thing with Emerald Flame is the contents are nice in the package. You actually get some physical stuff, and then you have to work it together, and all that's pretty cool. It's very enjoyable. But what I have to give many a good praise to these guys for is their website that connects with the game, where you can check for hints if you can't figure something out, because this is where a game like this, especially solo, is just not enjoyable. If you can't figure something out, you can't figure something out. You can come back to it, maybe eventually you will, but who knows how long. And if you've got a lot of other great games, how much patience are you really going to have? So they have a hint system, and each like puzzle or whatever you're solving, they have like something like 10 or so hints, like quite a bit before they give you the answer. It helps move you along the way. I don't know if a lot of other games like this have been doing it or do it, but that system is pretty cool. Now, the main negative about this is once you're done playing it, I mean, am I going to want to play it again? For me, probably not. But they also give you an extra package of replaceable stuff, because some of the stuff in here you'll probably ruin. So if you do want to resell it or give it to somebody else, you got those replaceables. So they thought about all that. Overall, everything's pretty visually and just aesthetically pleasing about this game. And the next letter T at number 11 is the Seventh Citadel. This is my newest arrival, and again, where I realized how much Etherfields was inspired by probably Seventh Continent. This game is for a solo gamer. I know these are really rated high for soloing, and I can totally understand it. You lay down cards and you walk through the world. What I'm kind of more excited about with this, rather than Euthia has the visual aspect to it. It's just very attractive, the miniatures. This one for miniatures, let's not even talk about that. But as far as the world design, the idea is very intriguing. What I think is better here is the battle and collecting items. And you can even build stuff here. So you've got this whole developing situation here, as well as exploration. This game, I think for me, is more exciting from Etherfields, is that this one feels like it has more purpose. I know what I'm out there for, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm searching for. The battles only help to remind me of that. It's a big world with a lot of variation, and I'm really excited to see what this artist, this creator, put out there for us, because it seems, again, very, very creative. And there's a map that you can update, and again, you can build stuff and all this other stuff that I think this game did that Seventh Continent didn't, kind of like Frosthaven is doing that Gloomhaven didn't. I think that's pretty intriguing for me and keeps me pretty excited. So this is up there for excitement. It's not something I'm crazy about yet, like a couple of other games that I mentioned, but for a solo gamer, this is going to be good. I know this is going to be a really enjoyable game. Now, replayability, I'm not sure there. And the next letter T at number 12 is They Live. You just know I had to back this right when it came out. And that was at the hype of a lot of board games, or at nearing the end of that big hype of board games on Kickstarter. I think it's comparable to, what is it? Either Mansions of Madness or the other Lovecrafty one. I'm not sure because I haven't played them, but I know they're very highly rated as solo board games, so I'm gonna have to have them eventually. But They Live, first of all, it's a huge table hog. Second of all, the nostalgia and everything they did with the theme throughout the board game, even the bubblegum dice, very awesome stuff. As far as the gameplay goes, I think some things can be a little bit lighter, but all in all, it was a little bit better than what I expected seeing the contents, because I'm so used to seeing minis and boards where you move your minis on and they make a relative sense to the mini, whereas this board is more abstract to your standees. So seeing that kind of layout, I wasn't too excited, but then starting to play and seeing how things work out, and then finding out who the alien is and preparing for the final ending, the final battles at the end, it's a pretty cool workup, and the whole game is kind of a workup to that. I guess that's where it's like the other game I mentioned or mismentioned. Am I that excited to play it again? Honestly, not that excited, because again, it is a huge table hog for what it is. It could be shrunken down very easily, but also it doesn't have that campaign aspect, which really gets me going. This is just, you know, you're choosing different characters and replaying like that. Replaying the same game, there's just those variances that keep it more customized to that session. So for me, that's not my favorite style of solo gaming, but it doesn't say anything that bad about this game. But overall, this is one of those mood type of games, so I really wouldn't mind playing it to, well, Watching They Live or some horror type of series. And last, out of this big batch of games that I received, at letter Z, at number 13 is Zombicide. And Zombicide has, it came with a nice expansion of a bunch of more minis. It's got Ozzy Osbourne in there and a bunch of other unlicensed characters that they have. So it's just cool to have those little minis too in general. But as far as the game goes, I'm not too excited about it. The first game that I reviewed and the first game that actually brought me back into this world is Village Attacks. Village Attacks was highly inspired by Zombicide. This is the only and first Zombicide that I've played. Village Attacks, the difference is a tower defense type of game, so you're situated in one area and kind of staying there, and then that's kind of the purpose. Whereas Zombicide, you've got the area and kind of exploring and moving forward. Also, Village Attacks, you're playing the monsters. Here you're killing zombies, which I was really looking forward to doing, as I do enjoy Walking Dead and zombies in general and just the world and that type of horror. The thing I like about this is, well, the combat is different, and because you're exploring and surviving, you get to find items and things like that. I like the little tabs that they have and all that system, especially with the second edition here. Oh, I forgot to mention Zombicide second edition. I am pretty excited with those little dashboards and all that, but I feel like with Village Attacks, this kind of game, it's just more fun with someone else. It's not that highly enjoyable for a solo gamer. Playing with other people and smashing zombies it's just more fun with this, especially again since there's not a heavy campaign moving you along. You're playing one scenario, you survive it, something moves you a little bit. I think there's a little bit of lore, like with Village Attacks, that moves you to the next one. So there is a campaign, so thumbs up to that, but each scenario is going to be very repetitive, whereas with playing with someone else, that doesn't sink in as much as it does when you're solo gaming. I think this style of gameplay, I'm sort of a little still even burnt out on. I'm still looking forward to sitting down someday, and you never know when that zombie killing mood's gonna hit in. It might hit in any day with me now, but I do have all the minis already painted here, and I'm looking forward to painting the extra ones in that expansion and the stretch goals that you got with the game. So overall, those are my thoughts on Village or Zombicide second edition and all these 13 games that I have received. Out of this whole batch, there is actually one more that is on the way, and another one, which was Hell. That's been shifted around, and Simon's actually taken over that project. But that is Primal the Awakening, a big boss battler game, kind of in the realms of Monster Hunter, and you get all these items that are related to the monsters you kill. But that one's pretty exciting because you're going to have these cool monsters, and the strategy seems pretty fun. That's going to be an awesome unboxing, so keep your eyes plucked out for that. And I hope this all helped you in deciding of whether you should get that game or not, and whether to see if my opinion actually matters. Well, you should just keep watching my board game related stuff, and of course all the Monstrous related stuff, because why else would you be here? That love of monsters runs deep and thick within us all, and if you don't realize it, you just haven't gotten to know yourself very well yet. And to see if my opinion about all this stuff is worth it to you and learn a little bit more about my opinion of certain games, you can check out my top solo games of before I unboxed a majority of these guys here. And that video is right here.